Will it harm my car if I leave it in the snow, mud or sand mode? No, it won't harm your car, although once you are done with the mode that you're using, it's just good practice to switch it back into road mode when you can. There is edge cases, for example, if you were to use sand mode, that it could make the car hard to turn if you're not using it on a slippery surface, for example, because of the build-up of torque within the driveline system. And also, inappropriate use of the modes could lead to a shortening of life on some of the components on the car. Do I have to stop to switch modes? Yet again, no. Everything's done electronically and on the fly. You don't need to come to a complete stop. Can I corner when in sand mode? Yes, you can. Unlike a traditional 4x4 that has a physical differential lock to make the wheels turn at the exact same speed, the Freelander 2 mainly relies on the brakes, so therefore the wheels can still turn at slightly different speeds. Just make sure whenever you're using the sand mode though, to actually make sure you're on a somewhat slippery surface, as if you're not, the build up of torque within the driveline system could lead to a few of the components not wanting to be your best friend. What happens if I forget to switch it back after using one of the modes? Well, nothing much really, because all of the special features within the different programs all have a set speed limit window that, providing you stay within that speed limit window, everything is hunky-dory and the program will operate as it should. Go beyond that window and go quicker than it, and the car will basically act to all intents and purposes as if it's in road mode basically. And then as soon as you drop back down into the speed limit window, the program will reactivate and do what it needs to do. The only cravat to that is if you have the hill descent control on, whether you've manually selected it or whether you select it via the mud ruts and it's come on automatically. Just be a bit careful of that, because the hill descent control that when you get into the window will reactivate once you touch the brake pedal, and it might give you a bit of a shock when you dab that brake pedal and the car continues to slow down because the hill descent control has activated and is thinking it's on a hill and bring you down to a real slow speed stop. So yeah, just be cautious of the hill descent control and make sure you're not that off manually if you don't need it. What's the best way to look after my terrain response system? Firstly, make sure you've got really good brakes on your car. Rubbish brakes probably means rubbish terrain response system, because the terrain response system relies very heavily on the braking system. Also, PTU, power transfer unit and rear diff, make sure your oil services are up to date on those as they're key components. And the Haldex, most importantly of all, make sure that's been serviced well. Make sure that's done every 2 years to keep that as happy as it can be, as without that you're going to have a rubbish four-wheel drive system. And a real minor point that I'm going to throw out there, make sure your Freelander 2 isn't driven on a set of two-wheel drive rollers. So make sure it's never on a set of rollers with only the front or rear wheels on the rollers and being driven in gear. Don't be too alarmed about the MOT, because that's a circumstance where the car will be on a set of two-wheel rollers, but that's okay because the car's left in neutral. The rollers themselves are powered, not the wheels. So that's how the braking test is done on them. That's fine. As long as the car's in neutral and the rollers are powered, that's fine. But if you're going for a remap or something like that, don't let the car go onto a set of rollers with only two of the wheels on them and it's put in gear and driven, as the components will not like that one bit. When I use the terrain response system, I get an error on the dash. Why is this? There's a high likelihood it'll be down to one of two things. First being the Haldex, has it been serviced correctly? There's a high likelihood that when you've taken it in to get serviced, a lot of garages don't really know how to service them, and at best they'll change the oil and filter, but they'll forget about the mesh screen in front of the pump, and all crud gets built up in front of that, and that causes problems with the Haldex. So make sure it's been serviced properly. Even if it has been serviced properly, it could be a malfunction with the Haldex. Pumps can burn out, the circuit boards can have problems. So yeah, your problem could rely within the Haldex system, so make sure you get that checked out. But also the terrain response system is very electrical heavy. It's got lots of sensors. It works very electronically. So if you've got a weak or struggling battery, that could be the other thing. So make sure if your battery's gone beyond 3 or 4 years old, it might already be time for a change. These cars are very battery heavy. So yeah, it's battery or Haldex. They'll be my first two ports of call if you have any issues with the terrain response system. I use the terrain response system for the first time and it feels like the back end of my car is jumping or skipping across a road. Why is that? Yet again, this is another symptom that points at the Haldex. It either hasn't been serviced correctly or it's lacking service, so it hasn't been serviced at all. One of them two items is highly likely, or you could just have a malfunctioning Haldex. If your back end is jumping or skipping, what's happening is the clutch plates within the Haldex are locked together and can't unlock. 9 times out of 10, this is the amount of debris that's built up within the Haldex, so the pump can't do the job that it needs to and somewhat separate the plates and kind of do the things that it needs to do. So all the plates are firmly locked together, so all the drive is always going through the car all of the time, and as the back wheels try and turn at different rates, they kind of struggle somewhat, so the back end ends up jumping and skipping because of it. If you can service the car yourself and do work on the car yourself, give the Haldex a good old service. If you can't do the work on the car yourself, then take it to a garage that can, but just be careful, don't just take it to any garage that says they can service Haldexes without being sure, or getting some sort of nod from a group or something like that, because if they do a half-assed job, you're probably still going to have the problem.